Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. As Diane says, my name is Legh. I've been diagnosed with, I now know, early age-related macular degeneration. I thought it actually had gone past that, and because I've got the disease, I find hearing about the advancements in medical science and the treatment for the disease absolutely fascinating. And I'm so pleased that we've got people like Dr. Bird, or Professor Bird, who is at the forefront of the technologies and where we're going. Now, it was my understanding that, that the success or the effectiveness of any of the current treatments is closely related to the stage at which the disease had progressed at the time of diagnosis and the start of treatment. Now, I was very fortunate that at a routine optometrist examination for spectacles, my optometrist identified that I had some anomalies with my eyes and referred me to the retina specialist for further consultation. Now, forgive me, I'm going to get some of this terminology wrong, I know that, but, it's my story. Dr. Sharp diagnosed that I had the presence of drusen's, and we've heard, what drusen's are with the fatty tissue, and alerted me that this was one of the early risk factors identified for macular degeneration. She introduced me to the Amsler chart and recommended that I do regular self-assessments of using the Amsler chart to determine if I had any deterioration in my eyesight. At that time, 10 years ago, 12 years ago, I had no impact upon my eyes. Now, following that, in the 10 years, I put up the Amsler chart in my bathroom, and we've got it on the fridge at home, and you can check one eye and check the other eye, and all things are fine. And I work in downtown Auckland, and before the downtown shopping centre was demolished to make way for another development, I'd regularly pass through there, and the centre managers had up on some large electronic screens notifications regarding macular degeneration and had the Amsler chart, so I'd quite regularly check it up. I also were getting having follow-up inspections or consultations with my optometrist for my spectacles, and every 2 years. So I thought I was on pretty safe ground. If I got the disease, I was going to know about it. I had no deterioration in my eyesight in that 10-year period. Then last year, in August 2015, I was at a company conference in Melbourne, Australia, and I guess you're all been to Australian conferences. They can get a bit boring. And there's a period of time when Australians are talking about Australian things, and it wasn't interesting to me. I looked out the window and I noticed the facade of the building next door, how the mullions of the window frames simulated or were similar to the lines on an Amsler chart. So I thought, oh, well, doing nothing, check one eye, check the other eye. My right eye was fine, yep. Looked at it with my left eye, no good. All the mullions appeared as wavy lines. So I had a fair idea that I had what I thought was wet macular degeneration. I got back to New Zealand on the Wednesday night, made an appointment with my optometrist on made the appointment on Thursday to get in to see the optometrist on Friday. Unfortunately, while they did identify that I had some loss of vision in my left eye, they weren't able to confirm whether it was macular degeneration or what it was, and again referred me to Dr. Sharp. An appointment was made for the following Tuesday, but later on that Friday I was contacted by the retina specialist and said if I could make it in on 8 o'clock on Monday morning, Dr. Sharp would be there for a consultation. Well, several hours of consultation. And I've seen all these photographs that Professor Bird puts up there, and okay, I don't understand them the way he does, obviously. I'm not a... But it showed at the end of it that I had a small bleed behind my retina, and that was the cause of the distortion that I was picking up in my eyesight. We discussed treatments, do nothing, go blind, didn't sound a good idea. The other was monthly injections for a period starting off for 3 months, and there was a choice of Avastin, Lucentis and Elia. I elected to go with Elia. I thought, well, you know, let's go for the top shelf and don't muck around. And I'm fortunate that I can do that. After each monthly consultation for another injection of in the eyeball, and I've got to say the thought of getting an injection in the eyeball is terrible. But the thought is much, much worse than the actual treatment. You know, I've really had no problems with it. At every follow-up consultation, my eyesight improved. You know, when I first presented, I think my eyesight was 6/24. It's now 6/7. Yeah, it's fantastic. I mean, everything looks normal to me. It's a great thing. Now, the thing that this brought home to me is that early detection is very important. Awareness is very important. We've seen that it affects 1 in 7 people over the age of 50. We know that it's the leading cause of blindness in New Zealand. So, you know, there has to be a program where we get awareness out. Now, I know Dr. Sharp doesn't always approve of this, but after an injection, you know, because I've got an open wound in the eye, there's a risk of getting a disease, and she tells me don't go into crowds and don't go where people are sneezing and things like that. You know, I bought myself an eye patch. It's one of those little pirate ones. And it's quite effective. I mean, I've gone back from getting an injection into a client meeting, and, you know, you've got clients and architects and engineers and construction people there, and you walk in with an eye patch. It promotes a lot of discussion. Right? They always knew I was one-eyed, but now they definitely know I'm one-eyed. Now, following that, one of the project managers that I was working with has since been diagnosed with wet macular degeneration, and he is on a similar treatment to what I am. So I think I'd help somebody out there. Other things that we've done to try and help the awareness, or the public awareness of the disease, is at one of my treatments, TV3 came up and videoed it all, then showed me the video of the needle going into the eye. They didn't show that on television, you know, but they used that interview and the video as part of a Macular Degeneration Awareness Week. And following that, you know, I'd be walking downtown and complete strangers would come up to me and say, I saw you on TV, you know, what's that eye disease that you've got? I think I've got a problem, you know. So we're trying to get the word out there. I also have an olive grove, and I turn olives into olive oil up just north of Auckland, near Wellsford. And of course, you know, anyone that's getting into our age, they all go out and they buy a lifestyle block and they put a few olive trees on it and they think they're going to make a fortune, and they don't. But they come to me to turn it into oil. So this year, you know, we put up the answer chart in the press house, and everyone that came along, we would make them do an inspection. And 3 people went off to get further consultation. Unfortunately, one of those 3 people was a doctor. You know, so I don't think the awareness level is actually as high as what people think it is. You know, none of my friends knew about the disease. None of them. None of my work acquaintances knew about the disease. And it's only because, you know, I'll get out there and I'll wear the silly eye patch and I'll, you know, make it look good, and, you know, and I'll tell people. I think it's very important. So, to say, I think the things that are important that we have to get across to people is that early diagnosis and early treatment, you can potentially save your eyesight or improve it. The current treatments aren't a cure, they're just something that'll hold it to where it is. And to be honest, I was a little bit shocked to know that it probably goes bad after 5 years. So, well, if I got 5 years of good eyesight, I've got 5 years more than I would have had otherwise. And that part of this has to be that everyone has got a self-responsibility in doing that eye checkup. You know, it's so simple. You just do it at home. You know, or you can be like me. Look at a building across the road and do it one eye at a time. You have to do it one eye at a time, and you can determine whether you have got a potential problem and whether you should be seeking further medical assistance. I think that's about as far as I can go on it.